A vicious strain of jealous anti-Zionism under the guise of conservative values.
Are you at the point yet where you would call what's happening in Gaza a genocide?
You can use whatever word you want.
But Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying that she's the first
good for
Republican
Marjorie
to go there.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Look, genocide is a legal term.
In Congress, everyone is chasing and pursuing and proclaiming their loyalty to a foreign country.
If you support what Israel's doing in Gaza right now, I would just, my advice to you guys is just know that you never have a leg to stand on claiming to be pro-life for the rest of your life.
This is a potential threat.
Ali Abunimah, co-founder of the Electronic Intifada, reports Trump administration shields Israeli official charged with child sex crime. On August 15, 2025, the Las Vegas Metro Police revealed that over the previous 2 weeks, they had arrested 8 individuals as a result of a multi-agency operation targeting child sex predators. The Las Vegas Metro, North Las Vegas, and Henderson, Nevada police departments contributed to the operation, along with the Nevada Attorney General's Office, the FBI, and the Department of Homeland Security.
We have new details about a recent child predator sting in the Valley. One of the 8 men arrested is an Israeli citizen. Tom Alexandrovich was released by a state judge pending a court date. The U.S. State Department says any claims of government intervention are false. Alexandrovich confirmed he was visiting Las Vegas for the Black Hat Conference and has worked for the Israeli government for about 14 years. He was caught after communicating with a decoy agent posing as a 15-year-old.
One of the 8 men arrested was one Tom Alexandrovich, who was interviewed after his arrest by a Homeland Security investigator and an FBI special agent. What caught Abunimah's attention, however, was a subsequent statement from the acting U.S. Attorney for Nevada. Last week, Tom Alexandrovich was arrested in a Nevada Internet Crimes Against Children joint operation, and he was booked into the Henderson County Detention Center. This important multi-agency operation targeted child sex predators who preyed upon the most vulnerable members of our communities. As a result of the operation, the Clark County District Attorney's Office is handling the prosecution. As Abunimah concluded of the move, this signals that the federal government is washing its hands of the matter, leaving Alexandrovich to be prosecuted at the state level. Alexandrovich being handed over to state officials is especially odd considering, Abunimah writes, the U.S. Department of Justice can and does file federal charges in such cases, especially when federal agencies are involved in a sting, but has, for some reason, chosen not to do so in this one. Alexandrovich was named in a November 2024 article on Israel's state website as head of the Technological Defense Division at the Israel National Cyber Directorate. According to the Tel Aviv-based cyber and tech networking platform CyberTech, he is executive director of the Active and Technological Defense Division Israeli National Cyber Directorate. He was also honored with the President of Israel's Defense Award for Special Achievement, the Top Defense Award. Indeed, Israeli outlets have referred to him as a senior Israeli cyber official. The Israeli Prime Minister initially denied that he had been arrested. However, his declaration of arrest is publicly available, as are his court case records, which shows he paid $10,000 bail. Abunimah is especially puzzled by the fact that he was released on bail. The major question is why Alexandrovich was allowed to post bail and leave the country at all. Being granted bail is not automatic. The purpose of bail is to ensure that a defendant who is released before trial, but courts routinely deny bail if a defendant is a flight risk or poses a potential danger to the community. Abunimah concludes Alexandrovich was obviously a flight risk. His arrest report is particularly damning. In his post-arrest interview, Alexandrovich stated he was in shock and he needed to contact someone about his international flight back to Israel. Alexandrovich stated his family was in Israel. Alexandrovich stated that it was very important he get numbers for his flight. Alexandrovich stated his flight is on Friday to New York and then he will fly to Israel. The acting U.S. attorney for Nevada passed the buck to the district attorney, who failed to require an alleged child molester to surrender his passport, which allowed him to flee our country. But this doesn't appear to answer why the top federal prosecutor for the District of Nevada failed to charge Alexandrovich, especially when multiple federal agencies were involved in his arrest and his post-arrest interview. Abunimah looks to her history, which may provide some context as to her decision. The top federal prosecutor for Nevada is an Israeli-born prosecutor appointed by Trump named Sigal Chada. Hey everybody, due to the content of my videos, I'm not advertiser friendly, so if you want to support my work, consider becoming a patron for access to exclusive content and the GDF Discord server. I also accept donations. Thank you so much to everyone who has become a patron and donated. Love you all, thank you. Abunimah linked multiple tweets from Chada's Twitter, where she said as recently as February 2025, there are 2 million terrorists in Gaza, even the children. She called on Netanyahu that same month to wipe Gaza off the map, calling Gazans animals. The following month, she repeated her call to wipe Gaza off the map. She deleted her Twitter shortly after these tweets were shared. Still days after the news of Alexandrovich's arrest broke, major American outlets have been completely silent on the issue. Interestingly enough, Axios appears to be associating the story with MAGA and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. Parts of MAGA's base have long obsessed over the, quote, deep state, which originally referred to a supposed cabal of pedophilic elites who control the government. A slice of the far right also promotes anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about Israel and Jews secretly pulling the strings in Washington. This framing is especially amusing. This story is hardly a conspiracy theory about Jews secretly pulling the strings in Washington. The Alexandrovich case involves an Israeli-American who is the top prosecutor for the Federal District of Nevada. This is, of course, a very much public and by no means secret official acting on behalf of the Department of Justice in Nevada. It's problematic that an anti-Semitic conspiracy trope hasn't been differentiated from legitimate scrutiny of a named public official's actions, especially a U.S. attorney with a public record of inflammatory statements making prosecutorial decisions in a controversial case. Axios' article blurs the line between conspiracy and accountability. It implies that anyone who questions why a U.S. attorney chose not to bring federal charges is indulging in anti-Semitic conspiracies. This is not about secret cabals or shadowy control. It's about a publicly known prosecutor making decisions in plain sight. But I think there's another element to the story that is being obfuscated by this framing. If Republican lawmakers, especially very partisan ones like Marjorie Taylor Greene, are the lone voices in the United States government expressing their outrage over this clear injustice, then that reflects badly on, in my opinion, not the people who are outraged, but at the United States government and the media who have refused to report on it, and even suggested it was a conspiracy theory. You may have noticed that right-wing figures, more specifically Republicans with a history of being pro-Trump, have been increasingly critical of Israel and even in some cases apparently sympathetic toward Palestinians. Theo Vaughn and Tucker Carlson comprise some of the most famous figures in the sort of podcast sphere of influence, and in Congress, there's Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Their support for Trump, however, is complicated by, or at least should be, his staunch support of Israel. This support includes, just in his second term so far, reversing a block on a shipment of 2,000-pound bombs to Israel, making anti-Semitism on campus with a heavy focus on pro-Palestine activism an enormous part of his agenda.
About 60 schools have been notified of possible investigations.
We're joined by Arno Rosenfeld, an enterprise reporter for The Forward. How does this administration define anti-Semitism, and how is it that it's become so central to its targeting of universities?
So the administration's understanding of anti-Semitism is really rooted in hostility toward Israel. So be that anti-Zionism or these other sort of protests.
Columbia University has agreed to pay more than $220 million to the federal government over the next 3 years. It is all part of a settlement with the Trump administration after they pulled $400 million of the school's federal funding over claims the university discriminated against Jewish students.
Bombing Iran for Israel, supporting a recent Israeli decision to build a large settlement in the West Bank that would effectively cut it in two, proposing Gazans be ethnically cleansed from the Strip, bringing that reality firmly into the mainstream inside Israel, arresting pro-Palestine students, the list goes on. Young Republicans are reportedly becoming increasingly unhappy with this support, which contradicts President Donald Trump's vows of isolationism, wrote Ben Samuels for Haaretz. Pew Research reported in March 2025 that negative views of Israel have risen in the U.S. among both Democrats and Republicans. By 2025, 71% of Democrats aged 18 to 49 held an unfavorable view of Israel. With those 50 or over, the number was 66%, up from 43% 3 years earlier. The vast majority of Republicans over 50 support Israel still, support that has declined just 4% in 3 years. But among Republicans aged 18 to 49, the number is now a solid 50%. Half of these younger Republicans have an unfavorable view of Israel. Broken down by religious affiliation, the data are quite enlightening. It goes without saying that Congress doesn't even remotely represent the views of their constituents. In an interview with The Daily, a New York Times podcast, Trump's first campaign manager Steve Bannon described the rift between Republicans and Trump. The interviewer, Michael Barbaro, recalled how Trump railed against Bush and the Iraq War at a debate in South Carolina, a military-heavy state.
Obviously, the war in Iraq was a big, fat mistake. We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East.
Trump ended up winning the Republican primary in South Carolina by a large margin. But now, Trump has potentially risked another escalation or maybe even a stupid war, as he described wars like Iraq. Steve Bannon sharply criticized Netanyahu.
You started a war, you started a conflict where you don't have the military capability to end it. You have to depend upon us. Do not listen to the voices on Fox News. You're playing into the worst of the neocon wheelhouse. I mean, this is all the hunt for, let's go hunt for yellow cake.
We've been in power for 6 months, and I was so excited in the beginning thinking there's nothing we can't do. Literally nothing we can't do. But 6 months in, there's literally nothing that we can do. And then we ended up bombing a foreign country. And that upset me so much. And I'm allowed to be upset about it. I can stand here and say—
You are allowed?
Well, no, I'm not sure if— not according to Mark Levin and not according to many others, you know, that prioritize another country over our country.
Perhaps Trump's biggest mistake that alienated his base, as revealed by Netanel Slyamovics for Haaretz, the debate in the MAGA movement over the war in Iran has thrust the Israel question to center stage. The attack infuriated two key voices in the movement, Bannon and Carlson, but there is actually no corner of the Trumpist media universe where, at the very least, one question isn't being asked. Why are Americans putting themselves at risk for Israel's benefit?
What do we get from Israel, do you feel like?
We got a lot of countries that hate us. Is one of the things we get.
Well, especially right now with this stuff in Gaza, I think it's one of the worst PR campaigns I've ever seen in my life. If they're even, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, I just don't, it gives their government this extremely evil look to me, you know, and I think to a lot of people, you know.
Our children's generation, they can't afford rent. They can't afford to buy a house. They can't afford insurance. They can't buy a new car. They can't find a good paying job. They're living month to month, paycheck to paycheck, credit card bills stacked up. And they literally look to the future going, how am I ever going to realize the American dream? And it seems hopeless for them. But then in Congress, everyone is chasing and pursuing and proclaiming their loyalty to a foreign country.
In a debate between conservative commentator Josh Hammer and comedian Dave Smith, hosted by Charlie Kirk, Smith made the conservative case against Israel.
We should be friends with Israel. We should trade with Israel and have a good relationship with them. But you know what? I also don't believe in welfare, and they shouldn't get another dime of U.S. taxpayer money, and they should not.
So
hold on. Their lobby should register as a foreign
That's a good
agent,
segue. Finish that.
and they should stop blackmailing our politicians.
Got it. So
I never said anyone's bought off by the Jews. We're both Jewish, and that's a dirty little trick you play. Look, if you support what Israel's doing in Gaza right now, I would just, my advice to you guys is just know that you never have a leg to stand on claiming to be pro-life for the rest of your life. Just saying that. If you... Oh, so it's okay to support a policy.
Let's not boo our speaker,
It's okay to support a policy that is killing babies. All of a sudden, killing babies is negotiable. All right, fine. The whole mission of this, what you can't even really call a war, because it's not a war, it's the destruction of a captive people. Gaza's been occupied since 1967 by the Israelis.
Regarding the arrest of Rumeysa Ozturk, a PhD student at Tufts arrested for writing an opinion article for the school's newspaper, Tim Dillon asked,
is this being done for America or for Israel? I mean, this is a fair question. Is the United States government now just taking edicts and orders from Israel? I think it's a fair question to ask. Does anyone feel safer with this woman off the streets? Is this the American government's? Is this what people voted for when they elected Trump, is to have a country taking orders from Israel? I don't think so.
In May 2025, Ben Samuels, writing for Haaretz, quoted the head of the Republican Jewish Committee, Matt Brooks, who condemned the woke right, apparently an attempt to weaponize the term favored by Republicans against those critical of Israel.
What is the woke right? Right. The woke right is unfortunately a new movement that we see percolating within the kind of Trump MAGA America First camp. It is characterized by a vicious strain of jealous anti-Zionism. It's under the guise of conservative values. These people say that they are part of the America First movement. These people would be largely irrelevant if not for Tucker Carlson. Dave Smith cannot actually articulate our argument. The people who are criticizing the woke right, if you asked him why we're doing that, he would say, oh, it's because we don't support Israel. So they're calling us woke because we don't support Israel. And it's like, no, that's literally one marker in a sea of evidence for why you are actually the woke ones. Everyone, especially Israelis who are so gung-ho about Trump, rightfully so, and so excited about this, are aware that this is a potential threat.
Brooks was incensed at the failure of multiple bills that were intensely supported by the pro-Israel establishment in the United States. The two bills were the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, or AAA, and the IGO Anti-Boycott Act. The AAA would legally require the Education Department to take the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism into account when determining if an action violating Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act was motivated by anti-Semitism. According to their website, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance defines anti-Semitism as, inter alia, denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination by, for example, claiming that the existence of a state of Israel is a racist endeavor, or applying double standards by requiring of it a behavior not expected or demanded of any other democratic nation, and drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis. On the term self-determination to describe Zionism, Peter Beinart of Jewish Currents took special interest in this argument. In his book, Being Jewish After the Destruction of Gaza, A Reckoning, Beinart countered, the world was unimpressed by the South African Defense Minister P.W. Bota's claim in 1977 to be defending the right of self-determination of the white nation. Because he wasn't defending self-determination, he was defending supremacy. When Jewish leaders say self-determination is a universal right, they're employing the same sleight of hand. Self-determination may be a universal right if it means communal autonomy. Few would quibble with a school in a largely Afrikaner town teaching children in Afrikaans so long as white and black South Africans live under the same law. But there is no universal right to a state in which your tribe rules everyone else. Leading the charge against the AAA bill was Senator from Kentucky Rand Paul, who said, "We're either a free society governed by the Constitution or we're not. We need to challenge hate with reason, not censorship." After the bill was amended 4 times, GOP Chair Senator Bill Cassidy took it off the table. A similar fate befell the anti-boycott bill. The bill explicitly targeted U.S. citizens seeking to support boycotts of Israel. Marjorie Taylor Greene announced she would vote no on Twitter. "It is my job to defend America's rights to buy or boycott whomever they choose without the government harshly fining them or imprisoning them. But what I don't understand is why we are voting on a bill on behalf of other countries and not the president's executive orders that are for our country." And so, despite a Republican majority in the House and Senate, the bills failed as a result of the small number of problem Republicans in the eyes of the pro-Israel lobby. In July 2025, Greene had become the first Republican in Congress to condemn genocide in Gaza.
Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Trump ally, writing, "It's the most truthful and easiest thing to say that October 7th in Israel was horrific and all hostages must be returned. But so is the genocide, humanitarian crisis, and starvation happening in Gaza." Israel has denied the accusation of genocide.
Are you at the point yet where you would call what's happening in Gaza a genocide?
You can use whatever word you want.
But Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying that she's the
That's
first
good for Marjorie
Republican to go there.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Look, genocide is a legal term. What is going on now, clearly, is absolutely horrific. 60,000 people dead and 140,000 who have been wounded. But the important point is not what you call it. It is horror.
Greene also took to Twitter after the recent arrest of Alexandrovich. When and how did America become so subservient to Israel that we immediately release a child sex predator after arrest with a 100% locked up case with evidence and let him off to fly back home to Israel? Would we do that with a Mexican child sex predator, Chinese child sex predator, any other country's child sex predator? I know God does not discriminate in his love for children. Why would we? The cracks have formed, and somewhat recently as well. Republicans may increasingly scrutinize the U.S.-Israel relationship and ask uncomfortable questions about what the U.S. really gets out of the relationship, and maybe even have a moral reckoning over what has been done with American taxpayers' dollars. One can only hope. Hey everybody, thanks so much for watching, and if you liked this video, be sure to subscribe for more content. Also, if you want to chat or talk about video ideas, become a patron to join the GDF Discord server. There's also exclusive content on my Patreon. Thanks everyone.